When I started in wedding photography, the style of photography at the time was very traditional, very posed. Everything was staged, managed by the photographer. I've been influenced by the sort of great documentary photographers, Cartier-Bresson, Salgado, Gary Winogrand, Robert Frank. The guys that really were street photographers almost. They'd go out with a small camera, probably one lens, two lenses, and just go and see life and just go and photograph life and then produce images which were little snapshots of moments that actually happened on the street, but they had so much meaning to the people in them and to the people that are actually viewing them. And for me, wedding photography is just a life event. In terms of actually shooting, a lot of my style is based on how these guys used to shoot: small cameras, fixed prime lenses, and being in amongst the action when it actually happens. My main two cameras when I'm shooting a wedding are the two Canon 5D Mark IIs. The cameras themselves are really small, they're really light, they allow me to remain quite unintrusive on a wedding day. They don't scream professional photographer at everybody, and they're really easy to use. On the 5D2s, my main two lenses are the 50mm 1.2L and also the 24mm 1.4L, the Mark II version. With these lenses I can cover pretty much most of the wedding day. I like to work fairly close to people, so I'm never more than say 15-20 feet away from people, and I can get a really great field of view with the 24mm. I can get lots going on, I can get lots of wide shots, lots of things happening, and with the 50mm I can come in a little bit tighter, get a more natural perspective on the actual subject that I'm photographing. And obviously with the 1.2 aperture I can do this in virtually no light at all, which is quite important to the way that I work, because I don't tend to use flash on a wedding day at all. It's just purely natural light. So the combination of the brilliant high ISO of the 5D2 and also the 50mm 1.2 is pretty much my favourite combination, and this is probably the combination that I use for 70-80% of my work on a wedding day itself. Moving on to the other bits and pieces that I take with me, obviously I have other lenses, because there are situations when this is too wide, the 24 is too wide, and the 50 is just it's not long enough. So I have an 85 1.2 which I use, and this would be used in situations such as speeches, drinks receptions, things like that, where I need to get a little bit further away from the subject, but I still need to have a really good amount of information in the actual viewfinder, and this gives it to me. If I'm stuck in church and it's a really long way from the back of the aisle to where the action's happening, then I will take a 135 f2 lens and I'll swap that out, and instead of taking that one I'll take this one, just to give me that little bit more range during the actual service itself. And then the other lens, which is really a standby lens, which I tend to use, I don't know, I suppose if anything happened to one of these other two lenses, is the 35mm lens. It's used as pretty much if the 50 went down I'd use the 35, or if the 24 went down then I would use the 35 1.4. So that's really like my backup lens for when I'm shooting a wedding. I was actually in the other room with the bride. Bride was having her makeup done, and bride's mum called the bridesmaid, that's the bridesmaid who's having her dress ironed, into the kitchen to have her dress ironed because the girls' dresses were a little bit creased. So I thought there could be an interesting shot here, so I just sort of walked through into the kitchen, and we had the dog on the right hand side that was taking a little bit of interest, and I actually thought that was quite a nice little picture there, with the dog looking in with the mum about to iron the bridesmaid's dress. And then this little kid just walked across the frame, and I took 3 images, I think, one after the other, and this one was the sort of the decisive moment for me, as he's just putting the crisp into his mouth. But in terms of composition, it was great because we've got lots of thirds going on here. The little kid's on the third, mum's on the third. You've got almost 2 pictures in one. Now, to get this type of image, you can't just go and machine gun a wedding. We call it machine gunning in the trade, where you just go in and take thousands of images just in the hope of getting 1 or 2 good ones. You have to look at what's happening, you have to listen, see things develop in front of your eyes, and then just wait for that moment when something is going to happen. This particular image was shot on the dance floor during the first dance, when all the guests came around the bride and groom. None of the guests are looking at me, they're all having a good time. The bride and groom are completely unaware I'm there as well. There's two ways that we can do this. First is without using flash. Now what flash would have done was would have immediately alerted everybody to the fact that there was a photographer taking their picture, and I would have probably been able to get like one image before everybody looked to see where the flash was coming from. The other thing as well is I work reasonably close to my clients. Now a lot of photographers feel that being unobtrusive is nothing more than standing 4 miles away with a huge telephoto lens and just taking pictures of people. And yet I'm a photographer who's usually within sort of anywhere between 6 to 12 feet of the clients taking pictures. Well, for me, it's all about how you behave in front of the clients. It's how you act in front of them. It's how you move around in front of them. Now, what's important for me is when I first turn up to a wedding, I get myself in that environment. Invariably it's with the bride getting ready, it might be with the guys getting ready, but I'm there and I'm sort of in their environment for the first 5-10 minutes, just moving around, getting them used to me, you know, saying hi to them and just getting them to relax around me. This is one of my all-time favourite pictures, I suppose. Again, this is a completely unstaged image. These guys were just doing this. All I did was move my position so that I could take account of the lighting situation here and also of all the other elements in the background as well. For example, the big candelabra there could have been a real problem if it had been coming out of the bride's head, for example. So these are all things that I have to look at when I'm actually shooting. This was shot with a 50mm lens, and this was just, I did one shot on this. A little practical thing as well. I mean, I don't have anything switched on the camera. The camera wants to be as quiet as possible, so there's no focusing beeps or anything like that. And I even turned the autofocus beam off as well, so that I don't have any little red lights flashing out from the camera, just to stay, you know, to allow me as much time as possible just to get that shot without disturbing them. This image here was one that I took when I first got the 5D Mark II cameras. This is shot at 6400 ISO, which to me is quite mind-boggling. It wasn't so long ago, you're only talking 5 years ago now, that I was shooting weddings with ISO 320 in black and white and colour film. So technology's come a long way, but what technology has given me as a photographer is this fantastic capability to be able to take images like this, which I wouldn't have been able to take before without using supplementary lighting, i.e. flash. In previous years, what I would have had to do with this particular image is shot it with a flash. Now, as soon as the flash had gone off, this kid would have known I'd been there and that would have been it. But with this particular image, I stayed there for about 2 or 3 minutes just watching what he was doing, taking a picture, seeing if he did something else, taking another picture. And this was the picture that finally ended up in the album. What is really a massive reflections and colours and something is something which I'm very much into these days. It works simply because the little kid's face is so bright in the frame. One of the problems we have with reflections obviously is you never know what's going to be reflected back in the screen, and it can be very bitty, but this worked really, really well. If the bridesmaid that's just to the right of her had been a little bit further over to the little kid's left, we would have lost the image. So I was able to just get it just right as she was coming in. Now why the image works is the colours are really great in it. We've got purples against greens which work really well. We can see enough of the bridesmaids in the car body to actually see what the image is all about, but it's the expression for me, it's the eyes, it's the way the little flower girl is just looking out the window that really makes the image for me. Here we have the groom's father who's just having a quick prayer just before his son gets married. But all around him we've got stuff going on. For me, this just sums up my whole approach to wedding photography, and it's also one of the reasons why I like to use standard to wide angle lenses. I like to show a lot of what's happening around a central subject. By doing that, I'm able to put him in context to where he is. That particular moment on the wedding day, we know it's just before the service is about to start. We know it's when the guests are arriving. So it immediately puts the groom's father into a time frame actually on the wedding day. By coming back a little bit and shooting a vertical shot, I was able to include the arch of the church, so we can see the type of church that it is now, and the stained glass window in the background. It just all works together as a really good storytelling image. On the wedding day, it's quite important to a lot of my clients that even though I'm a photojournalist shooting their wedding day, that they do have some images of their family and at least a couple of pictures of the bride and groom together in sort of a formal setting. So it's something which I'm quite happy to do. We tend to do these as late as possible in the day, so that the formal pictures don't take away from all the fun and sort of the festivities, if you like, of the wedding. My advice for anybody wanting to get into the wedding photography business is very, very simple. Make yourself different in some way, whether it's the type of pictures that you take, the post-processing that you do, where you're based, the type of people that you want to deal with, anything that gives you something that's unique compared to anybody else that's in that marketplace. If you're just coming into the business, then obviously price is a factor. It's no good coming into a wedding photography business and trying to charge the same kind of money as people that have been in it for 15, 20 years, that have got themselves a reputation within the industry and a strong market presence. So initially, when you come into the industry, you may have to take on weddings which don't make you a lot of money, but it gives you the chance to express yourself. It gives you the chance to be able to take images for yourself, and gives you the experience to allow you then to create a unique selling point, if you like, something that's unique about your photography or your business. And then it's just a question then of working hard to make sure that your internet presence is really great. The internet is where most people now look for everything, not just wedding photography, but everything. A great website is like your shop window. The tendency now is, through cost, a lot of people are having what we call template sites now, where they're just buying a generic website from an internet service provider or a website hosting company, or even a website design company, just buying template sites and then just adding the content in. The problem with that, of course, is that you're just buying what everybody else is buying. If you put yourself in the position of a bride will probably look at 10 to 15 photographers. If the websites and the work on the websites and the style of work is all very similar, then she's not going to remember who she's seen, and she's not going to be able to decide between all of those photographers because they all look the same. And then from there, you're looking at recommendations. You need to make sure that when you deal with your clients, and we've been through all this over the years, you have to make sure that everything that you do is absolutely done to the best of your ability, and that you always overperform in the eyes of the client. And then that way you'll get a great reputation, and then you should be able to start producing clients that want you for your reputation and your uniqueness in the marketplace. I would also say as well that there's nothing that's very quick in this industry. You've got to be looking at 3 to 5 years really before you start making an impact in terms of bookings and so on. After 20 years in the business, I still have a passion for what I do, and my work still develops almost on a yearly basis. At the end of each season, I look back over my work and see where I need to improve, see what I liked about that year's work, and then I take all that forward to the next year, and it keeps me fresh, and it keeps me active, and it keeps a real passion for what I do still going almost. It's something which is really important to me.